So it seems we're at the end of session 1. Are there any questions for the speakers so far? No. Okay. You can type them in the chat box. I got a question. So it seems I heard a lot about more exploratory ways of looking at signs and emojis. Wouldn't you be afraid that with so much exploration going on, that the ideal of one language that you can use to communicate is at risk? Because historically seen from also what we saw yesterday, there's this ideal that you can use a shared visual language to communicate. But if we're introducing so many experiments, wouldn't that ideal be at risk?
I feel like if we're constantly challenging ourselves, we'll stumble upon something interesting. You know, if we keep sticking to a way of doing something and we go by it, you know, constantly, then I think we need a space to keep innovating. And for example, emoji kitchen, like these are not emojis that are available. I mean, they are available, but they're not emojis. They're stickers, which are different. So if there is some space to experiment, I think that encourages innovation, and we should keep testing it and keep, you know, pushing the boundaries. And that's why I would say, like, embracing ambiguity would, you know, challenge us to, you know, be more playful. And yeah.
Because it does seem that it's already implemented in many platforms who use emojis to communicate or to visualize emotions or meanings within their platforms and communicate them to users. Like the examples you showed, Grammarly, but also Instagram. So that's somewhat past the stage of experimentation. It's really being used already.
Yeah.
It might also tie in with specific user groups of these platforms that are targeting and trying to attach. So you would develop some kind of sub-languages that use emojis in their own way with their own metaphors. So in that sense, it's very analogical to language, that idea of subcultures that you see arising with the use of these emojis. It's quite fascinating, but yeah, hence my question. Daniel, what do you think about that? Do you see that risk?
That we can't agree upon what to use for.
Yeah.
No, I hope not. I think the symbols we can agree upon and we can identify easily to 100%. It's a minority, and there are many symbols that can have different meanings, maybe. And with platforms like Emoji Kitchen, there are countless possibilities. But I don't think I don't think it's a problem. I think it's rather a problem to take these single emojis a step further, to use them for combinations, as not like Emoji Kitchen, but to combine several emojis to get something like a sentence. I think that's a tough job. I don't really believe in these universal language concepts that we also saw yesterday. I think it would be nice, but I think it's even tougher than the digital version of the Symbol Sourcebook. I don't think we'll ever get there.
One thing I've been thinking about lately is what would happen if indeed the digital and the physical world would integrate in augmented reality, because we're perceiving the world in increasing measure through our screens, or perhaps later a new version of Google Glasses. And it's quite likely that the owners, the introducers of these tools, will also bring with them their own platforms, their own symbols, and project them over our physical world. And at that moment, there might be a situation in which it starts interacting with the already existing pictograms and icons we already have in our physical world, which have been often laid down in standards, so have been legalized. So I personally do see a danger that there will be more chaos in that sense. Might also be a generational difference. Huh?
Yeah,
but it's interesting because the
I don't know. I mean, I think what you have is the design systems are becoming increasingly modular because they're learning from each other, and that modularity becomes increasingly granular, right? So Emoji Kitchen are making like mashups between emoji, but the building blocks remain consistent. If anything, with Unicode, they're providing more flexibility of whatever, contextualizing a heart with a blue versus a heart versus white, right? Which we saw in the last two conversations. So if anything, again, I feel like you actually can draw a real parallel with the Neurath, with Marie Neurath's work in Africa in the late 50s and 60s, where the icons for male and female and road and house were roughly the same, but tweaked a little bit to provide that appropriate nuance in the communication to the intended audience. And I don't actually think that it's any different. It's just becoming more granular with emoji.
Well, it depends. The question is also, what do we mean by emoji? I also saw many examples that might also be seen as icons. Unicode is a technical standard for specific platforms, but it's quite likely that you would have overflowing interaction between symbols introduced on different platforms. There will be interaction. And at that moment, you would see some kind of overflow. And then the question becomes, who determines the standard? And I see here some risk, again, it's more my personal vision, that technology giants, indeed like Google Materials, Apple SF icons or symbols, will determine these standards.
I can't help thinking that we haven't actually got anywhere since the Symbol Sourcebook was sorted out all those years ago, when they were trying to stop this language barrier. I mean, images can do that, but then there are so many images that is it really working? Are we continuing to add to this Babel of symbols? And should we have a group of universal symbols that we all do learn, which maybe are not a large amount, but then we can then go ahead and have our own languages that we use between each other?
Yes, so I think it was an interesting period of time. Also, the people seemed very idealistic in the 60s and 70s. Yeah, they had. Yeah, socialism also seemed achievable, maybe. Yeah, but it didn't. Since these 40-50 years ago, I also see there are no other books appeared compared to the Symbol Sourcebook or Zeichensysteme. We got plenty of icons. When Vibo talked about the AR thing, I had to think about the trucks from Richard Dreyfuss, where people were also surrounded by pictograms with the interface, and here we are surrounded by icons in our desktops and maybe also in AR or VR. So we have several areas where icons really become indispensable. Interfaces also. The short messages, but there's no controlling. Nobody controls it or sets the standard, and I think it would already be enough to collect some basic principles and get a source of reference.
But the intention for the Symbol Sourcebook was that it was updated. Almost like the fact that in the Oxford English Dictionary, they will add new words every now and again.
But it wasn't.
But it wasn't, obviously. Dreyfuss died.
No, but Sue, did Dreyfuss leave any provisions for that before he went to another world?
Well, I think it all just came to an end. I think he sorted out his life. Because Modley, going back to Modley, it was going to be his baby to do the data bank, but he died in 76, so no time to do it. So I mean, I just keep thinking, if we'd had this source book of the most common symbols used that came out every year, then we would get to know those if we were buying this book every year, or it would be online or whatever, then that would be in some way a universal source book, but it would have to be continually updated. And if we had that, then an awful lot of what Eliana has been showing today, and maybe Daniel, would be in it.
And I think that exists. It's called the Unicode Consortium, right? Like I feel like this is a solved for answer, right? And that became manifested through an adoption of technology, right? We all have smartphones. That's why everybody uses emoji.
No, that's not true. I mean, Unicode is a limited platform, mainly used in the Western world. That's a very cultural specific use. If you take a look at China, it makes much less use of Unicode symbols. It has a much more flexible system. Stickers, which have a much richer range of expression than Unicode. If I take a look at Unicode, I see a platform that's quite limited. Realization of, let's say, an enlightened ideal of total rational numbers that are filled with lay down symbols, actually pretty prescriptive. So yeah, it's not only Unicode, it's quite a flexible world in the end. I'm playing here a little bit advocate of the devil, but yeah, with a Unicode encyclopedia, we're not going to make it.
Well, my only response to that is that the technological underpinnings of Unicode are also manifest in how the technology, no matter what country it's from, is being implemented. The JavaScript and the HTML and the CSS and everything else, right? So there's a technological underpinning that is invoking this standardization of symbols across cultures.
But I think
no. That doesn't fly. I mean, there's a major limitation here with Unicode, and that is that you have the Unicode Consortium that determines what is in and what is out. That's a very limiting way of viewing technology. Technology can also free up and give spaces. What now if you would have 1,000 Unicode consortiums determining what symbols to use? What now if the telephone can use all of these different? And that's more similar to the sticker system in China.
I mean,
you can look at it in different ways. Yeah.
By the way, regarding the signage world, we use the Department of Transportation sign and symbols a lot. And looking at airport signage, it's quite popular in a way that it becomes more of kind of a canonized book, I think, for many of us that deal with signage, like international sign and symbol.
I just wanted to add one more point to what we were discussing about Unicode. So I think like one of the biggest problems with emojis right now is that they look different on different platforms. Like Apple emojis are different from Android emojis, and there's a big loss in meaning because some of the way that some of these emojis are rendered, they don't communicate the exact message. So I think this is like one of the challenges that current challenges with emojis right now. And each platform is designing their own set of emojis also. Like, for example, platforms like LinkedIn or Instagram, and like they have their own renderation of the exact same emojis, but then they don't look the same, and they don't communicate exactly the small slight changes make all the difference.
Mhm.
Like, then you come again at the power of platforms. I mean, LinkedIn is owned, Instagram is owned by the big platforms, and it's part of their marketing strategy. The way the communication department works is that they don't look at similarity of the symbols, but they purely look at the marketing for this particular product. And
I
based
guess
on that, they will adjust.
I guess the biggest challenge is the iOS and Android, problem, because those two people, I mean, people have Apple phones, people have Android phones, and when they're texting, there's a big miscommunication in the emojis that are being sent. I think that's the biggest issue here with the difference in the way they render.
So clarity is important.
But do you think that these issues become less and less, as I think that they try to eliminate these bugs by time?
I have actually stopped using a few emojis because they didn't translate the way I wanted them to.
Okay.
Like I used to use the chirpy bird emoji and from the Android, and then when I saw what it looked like on Apple, I just stopped using it because it didn't look as chirpy. It looked quite different. So I don't think so. I don't know.
It would be so cool when there would be different fonts. Yeah, you can choose the emoji font and then it's independent from the operating system. But
yeah,
I don't think that will ever happen. Also, yeah, and it's really, I would just use black and white emoji, or maybe black and white plus one signal color. Okay, but yeah, no options yet.
But Daniel, wasn't that also part of your plan for Open Emoji? It's a university project, but did you hope that you could use it in such a way?
Well, we don't have the standard of Apple or Google. Yeah, so we're not that good because we don't have unlimited time, unlimited power, and unlimited money. So it's an open source project. We managed to do an app for iOS where you can choose and copy paste the OpenMoji, but you won't get there unless you're part of the operating systems, and they are controlled by the big tech companies, and that's also a problem. I think Google gives the most interesting input for Unicode emoji, but Emoji Kitchen seems like a proprietary thing also by Google, but yeah, and it could be the base of a new standard, but we don't know what Google will decide. And I think, yeah, honestly, I think that the problem is also Jason managed the different aspects from educational, economical, and yeah, Google and Apple, they are interested in messaging, entertaining, communicating, and the other aspects like usability, interface, information design, they are not part of the emoji system, and I don't see any attempts to standardize there. I don't think that San Francisco symbols and Google material icons are by any means compatible. It's just two huge independent systems, and that makes no sense in the long term, maybe.
No, so I do see a danger there. When we are going to go to more to an AR-based universe, at least if we have to believe Facebook or a big friend over there, he says we're going there, but also Apple is making a major push. Tim is promoting this continuously. So I wonder what will happen then. So far, what Microsoft showed in terms of experiments with AR is that they have quite a simplistic view. They just grab a few existing icons and put it on the glasses, and that's it. So I do see a lot of potential and possibilities, but also problems there, challenges. It's something that I myself would like to take a closer look at. What are these companies doing, and how will this influence the future of icon and pictogram usage? Not as much design. I think designers will keep on designing emojis, like in your class. So many people are working on this. That's never the issue. The issue, I believe, is more who controls their use. So that's my worry. So to come back to a point that you make in regard to the Symbol Sourcebook, you said that you don't believe that we've made much progress since, but don't you think that the increasing use of symbols and icons in specific contexts, and so far quite successfully, because we all use computers successfully, we all use mobile phones, good, but doesn't that show progress?
Well,
that's the other side.
It shows progress between people who want to communicate with each other, yes. But whether it shows, shall we say, business progress or more universal progress, no.
Why not? The idea was that we would increasingly use symbols as an effective way to communicate. Doesn't it show the increasing use of symbols?
Well, yes, but the symbols are growing and growing and growing and multiplying and multiplying. And that's why I can't help feeling that we need two layers of symbols, that the universal and the next layer down, where we communicate with each other, but we have our own symbols that we know we will, you know, everyone will understand within our group.
But wouldn't you agree then that the current symbols that we see on airports, let's say the 50 most used ones, the DOT symbols, that most people would understand them?
Well, yeah, I mean they are, yeah, they're pretty universal. Yes.
So what is missing then?
Well, because people are still doing their own style of those. There are still new symbol sets that keep coming out.
Okay. Then the stylistic they might impact the usability. Stylistic might impact the functional usability sometimes of these symbols.
Yeah, I'm talking style. And it might well be to do with the corporate style, or the fact that you want to be unique or distinctive. So you will redesign your symbol set to reflect your identity. Okay,
there's nothing wrong with that, I think.
No. I mean, there's nothing wrong with any of it, really. But if we're talking about universal understanding, then really the simpler the better. And these are things. If you are a constant traveler going around airports, train stations, and round cities in general, then signing systems should be quite similar. And the smart cities movement, TfL, they can be very regular.
Daniel, how do you think about this?
Yeah, I think Sue is right, but I think it's not a real problem, because Unicode just defines number 41 is a Latin capital letter A, for example. Yeah, it doesn't say exactly does the A have serifs or no serifs, and it works. And I think with basic symbols it could work in the same way as I hope so, as I think, yeah, what are conventions? But I think basic symbols can deal with a certain level of flexibility or variation. That would be interesting to explore, but I think I'm sorry, coming back to the progress that Sue mentioned. I think there is a lot of progress, but not the kind of progress that Otto Eicher or Richard Dreyfuss would have thought of. Otto Eicher, there's a sketch by him, and it shows that icons and pictograms become more and more, they take over signage systems. Signage system was mainly letters and more icons, but Otto Eicher died in the early 90s, and yes, signage systems, but it's mainly interfaces, the computer, where icons completely took over. And what I really miss is that there's no real reflection. Yeah, it's all driven by business. Business is fast and it works, but yeah, there's no real.
I do taste a certain idealism here, Daniel. I cannot get around it, but I do taste some idealism here about how it could be, how we could use it them as more like a language in public space somehow.
Sorry, but
I mean that I do taste a certain idealism in you that you think that there should indeed be a clearer use of symbols somehow. If you look for basic symbols, then yeah.
Yeah, it's really, you have to pick from, also when I update my network font at the moment, yeah, I'm doing new icons, and although I did the OpenMoji project, yeah, I always have to go to Emojipedia, and then yeah, just a simple thing like a sheet, the paper, the paper with a sheet of paper, yeah. I go to Emojipedia and I type in Piper, nothing happens because it looks for the Unicode name, and then sometimes I get a Unicode code point, sometimes it's not in Unicode, and I put it to the private use area, but there's really no reference and no central. Also, Unicode, it's a big achievement, but it's also not really accessible. Also, when you search for something in Unicode, you get.
So do we need then a symbol source book for emojis and icons?
Yes, also I would buy one. Also, can you please make one?
No, but would that be a good idea? Maybe it should be the website, right? It can be continuously updated somehow. But
I would pay money for it, and I would be happy to have one. Yeah, because yeah, there's such a rich history. Also from Dreyfuss. Maybe not many connections to emojis, but that's also a problem with the students. Yeah, they're all on Instagram. They see the daily fancy stuff, but there's more behind it, and that should be made more visible.
Maybe that's what needed then. Jason showed a diagram in the beginning of the development of visual statistics. It also bordered a bit on history of pictograms. Maybe we need a more detailed history of emojis too, because currently it's quite rough. It's not very crystallized. Many students use it as projects for the final examinations, but maybe we need some closer attention.
Yeah, I think we need to move on.